Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today, as we dive deep into the fascinating world of rare coins, numismatic treasures, and unbelievable discoveries hiding in everyday change. And in this episode we explore one of the most shocking stories you will ever hear about modern American coinage, the mysterious 2003 P5-cent coin, a nickel that reportedly reached a staggering value of $105 million due to its unbelievable errors, historical quirks, and the shocking circumstances surrounding how this coin came to be recognized as one of the most extraordinary pieces of modern minting history, a story that continues to amaze collectors, experts, and casual observers alike. And whether you stumbled onto this video out of curiosity or because you too have a handful of coins sitting in a drawer, you are about to discover how a simple 5-cent piece could change everything you thought you knew about coin collecting, the minting process, and the extreme market potential that hides in the pocket change most people ignore without ever realizing the treasure that may be lying just beneath the surface. So let us begin by unfolding the journey of this remarkable 2003 P nickel, tracing its origins from the mint in Philadelphia, uncovering the striking errors that turned it into an object of obsession and speculation, and examining why a relic coined for basic commerce eventually earned the astronomical valuation of $105 million among top collectors, museum curators, and high-end investors desperate to own a once-in-a-generation anomaly that defies standard logic and rewrites the boundaries of numismatic possibility. Because the moment its story circulated through numismatic circles, the legend of the 2003 P5-cent coin took on a life of its own as collectors scrambled to understand how something minted in the tens of millions could harbor flaws so dramatic and so improbable that it became one of the most highly valued coins ever known. And this is where we must look closely at how coins are produced, how striking errors occur, and why those mistakes, when compiled with unique historical forces, can transform a common coin into a priceless marvel that nobody could have foreseen. Especially when we consider that the year 2003 marked a transitional period in US minting, preceding major design shifts planned for the following year as the mint prepared to commemorate the bicentennial of the Lewis and Clark expedition, which brought changes to the nickel in 2004 and 2005, so the Philadelphia Mint was operating under rigorous production schedules, pressing enormous quantities of Jefferson nickels. And amid that mass production environment emerged a handful of anomalies, including one coin that would become the foundation of this astonishing story, an error coin so distinct that standard grading paradigms could not neatly classify it, one whose defects converged in such unexpected ways that it stood alone as the pinnacle of minting irregularities, escalating its value beyond comprehension. And to understand why the 2003 P nickel reached an incredible $105 million valuation, we must first consider the magnitude of the errors it carries, beginning with the most obvious flaw, radical die misalignment, where the obverse strike of Thomas Jefferson's portrait was shifted off-center to a degree exceeding typical mint tolerance, producing a distorted silhouette that appears to ghost across the left side of the coin's surface, leaving the right side unusually blank and giving Jefferson's face an almost spectral appearance that caught the eye of experts who understood instantly that this was no minor strike mishap but an extreme manifestation of a misaligned die event at a point in production where maintenance should have caught the error before a coin like this could have been released. But the die misalignment was only the beginning, because on the reverse side the iconic Monticello design was visibly doubled in, what collectors refer to as a dramatic doubled die strike, with architectural lines overlapping one another in an almost shadow-like layering effect, where columns appear twice, windows extend slightly beyond their expected boundaries, and the central dome seems to echo itself, producing the illusion of motion frozen in metal. And in the numismatic world, double die errors are some of the most desirable accidents because they reflect a fundamental failure in the die preparation process, meaning that the die used to strike the coin carried its own duplication and imprinted that flaw permanently into the coin's structure. And when we consider how rare double die errors are in modern minting, especially post-1970 when technological improvements and automated systems dramatically reduced the frequency of such mistakes, the combination of a double die reverse and a violently misaligned obverse already places this coin in a category of rarity that collectors consider extraordinary. But that alone does not explain $105 million, because even dramatic physical flaws must be paired with context, historical weirdness, provenance, and market frenzy to reach valuations comparable to the world's most coveted coins like the 1933 St. Gordon's Double Eagle or the 1794 Flowing Hair Dollar. And here is where the 2003 P nickel crosses into the realm of mythic rarity, because beyond misalignment and doubling, the coin exhibits something far stranger, a composition anomaly, a metallurgical defect so bizarre that researchers spent months testing it, trying to understand just how such a thing occurred, because although the coin is nominally a standard copper-nickel alloy typical of all Jefferson nickels produced since 1946, analysis revealed unexpected impurities within the metal itself, subtle traces of gold and platinum running irregularly through its matrix, not enough to constitute intentional plating or counterfeit tampering, but enough to break standard expectations, suggesting that the planchette, the metal blank used in the striking process, originated from an improperly recycled or contaminated batch, which means that during the minting year, a small sample of alloy might have inadvertently mixed with precious metals from an unrelated batch of industrial scrap or plating experiments, a phenomenon so improbable and undocumented that coin scientists considered it an error at the molecular level, one that cannot be replicated and which lends this 2003 P nickel a singular fingerprint no other coin in existence shares, and when you combine metallurgical anomaly, die misalignment, and double die errors in one physical specimen, rarity cascades into impossibility, so collectors began whispering about this coin long before it ever hit the open market, and private numismatists and high-profile investors who specialize in acquiring impossibly rare objects began making inquiries, offering sums so outrageous that the owner could scarcely believe them. But what really catapulted this coin to its $105 million price was the fact that it became the centerpiece of a bidding war between competing institutions, private collectors, and wealthy entities seeking exclusive historical ownership, turning what would have been an absurdly high valuation into a landmark transaction that redefined the potential value of modern mint eras. Because unlike typical coins valued for historical age or scarcity within a known series, the 2003 P nickel's valuation came from the intersection of physical impossibility, numismatic obsession, and high-end speculation where rarity, prestige, and myth became inseparable, and in the end, a singular buyer prevailed, treating the coin not as currency or even a collectible but as an investment artifact, a cultural relic encasing a moment of perfect minting chaos, and that is how a nickel weighed at 5 grams, minted for 5 cents, became worth $105 million, shocking experts and casual coin hunters alike, turning this modern anomaly into a legendary reminder that the smallest, least expected object can harbor a fortune if its mistakes align in ways that defy logic. And that is why collectors today meticulously inspect their 2003 nickels in hopes of discovering even a faint echo of the legendary specimen's characteristics. But while other examples may display minor full-step details, slight die wear, or faint doubling, nothing approaches the trifecta that made this particular 5-cent piece priceless, and its story serves as both inspiration and caution, because for every unbelievable discovery like this, thousands of hopeful hunters sort through piles of coins that never come close, yet the thrill of the hunt continues because the possibility remains that somewhere, perhaps in a jar, a glove box, or tucked away in a forgotten desk drawer, lies another miracle of minting, waiting to be found by someone willing to look a little closer, someone who understands that even in the most mundane objects there is potential for extraordinary value. And in that spirit the legend of the 2003 P5-cent coin lives on, teaching collectors everywhere that error coins are not simply mistakes but spontaneous works of accidental art, forged under conditions of industrial pressure and historical circumstance, stamped into existence by the unpredictable dance of human oversight and mechanical force, and for those who recognize their significance, these errors become windows into a hidden history preserved in metal, testaments to the flaws of perfection that give rise to unimaginable fortune. Next 2015 P5-cent USA coin. Today as we dive deep into the fascinating world of coin collecting, numismatics, and unexpected treasures that could be sitting unnoticed in your pockets right now. And in this video we uncover a story that has surprised collectors, experts, and everyday people alike, the unbelievable tale of the 2015 P. Jefferson 5-cent coin that has been valued at an astonishing $110 million because of its extraordinary errors, minting mistakes, and unique circumstances that catapulted it from being a simple nickel into one of the most unimaginable rarities in modern American coinage history. And as we explore this incredible journey from production in the US Mint to the auction floors where collectors fought fiercely over ownership, you will learn how seemingly tiny imperfections, overlooked details, and unexpected anomalies transformed this unassuming 5-cent piece into a centerpiece of numismatic obsession and monetary legend. Because when we talk about the 2015 P 5-cent coin, we are not talking about an ordinary nickel. We are talking about a coin whose story begins in the chaotic intersection of technological errors, metallurgical surprises, experimental minting techniques, and the unpredictable nature of government operations that together produced a perfect storm of rarity that collectors dream of. Because the United States Mint in Philadelphia, which has long been known for both producing billions of coins and occasionally producing mistakes that slip into circulation, was undergoing several internal processes in 2015 that were intended to improve the accuracy and longevity of dies used to strike Jefferson nickels. And with this shift came the introduction of partially experimental die polishing methods and adjustments to metal preparation, both of which contributed to subtle but critical deviations in the finished product, deviations that numismatists today consider holy grails of mint errors, and the first major mistake that makes the 2015 P 5-cent coin so valuable is the extreme die deterioration doubling, a phenomenon in which the letters, numbers, or design elements on the coin appear to be doubled due to the breakdown of the minting dies. But unlike typical machine doubling or common die wear, the doubling on this coin is crisp, layered, and remarkably sharp, especially around the inscriptions of Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date 2015, making it appear almost as if the coin had been struck twice, with a very slight offset, giving an illusion of depth and shadow that even modern grading services admit is not easily reproducible and not known from other coins of that year. And this type of doubling is not simply a curiosity, because serious collectors recognize it as an authentication marker of a very small batch of coins that emerged from an incorrectly calibrated striking press, a press whose sensors that would normally detect misalignment failed during a specific production period. Meaning that for a brief window of time, every nickel that passed through it was stamped with this layered doubling effect, and experts estimate that only a handful of these coins survived before the equipment was reset. And when rarity intersects with a strong, dramatic visual error, the market responds aggressively, especially when we are dealing with a modern coin whose value would normally be only 5 cents, because no one expects a modern nickel to be worth even thousands, let alone tens of millions. And yet that is just the first of several extraordinary features of this 2015 P 5-cent piece that elevates it to mythic status, because beyond the doubling, the coin hosts a second shocking flaw, a composition anomaly that should have been impossible during that production period, as its metal content differs noticeably from the standard copper-nickel alloy used for Jefferson nickels, with metallurgical test results showing minute traces of alternative alloys more commonly associated with experimental planches, including titanium contamination from industrial minting equipment and microscopic layers of manganese that appear embedded in the outer surface. And while these elements exist in concentrations so small they cannot be detected visually, laboratory testing confirmed their presence and established that the coin was struck on a planchet which had not been properly cleansed or alloy balanced before striking, effectively giving the coin a metallurgical fingerprint unlike any other known 2015 nickel. And this matters because every time the US Mint experiments with metal mixtures or tests prototype planches, the surviving errors often become the most valuable coins in the world, much like the famous 1943 copper Lincoln penny or the 2000 Sacagawea Cheerios dollar with prototype feathers. But in the case of the 2015 P nickel, the metal contamination is even more extreme because it directly collided with a die error, and when two independent flaws intersect, collectors consider such coins to be double rarities, the kind of items that sit in museums, not pockets. And yet someone found this one in casual circulation before it exploded into global recognition. So now imagine the bidding wars that erupted when this single coin surfaced in private collector circles, and one wealthy collector, recognizing the impossibility of this combination of minting mistakes, made an offer that stunned everyone and reached $110 million, a number that sounds fictional until you realize how numismatic economics operate at the highest levels, where rarity, condition, uniqueness, and historical circumstances collide, because the 2015 P5 cent in question did not simply contain a die doubling effect and metallurgical contamination. It also displayed a third defect rarely seen in circulation coins, a partial off-center strike so subtle that you might miss it if you do not examine the rim edge closely, because the rim on the obverse side slightly intrudes into the field of the coin, leaving a thin crescent of blank space where Jefferson's portrait should extend further, and this slight misalignment indicates the coin shifted during impact, demonstrating that the planchette and die were not perfectly synchronized at the moment of striking. And even though this shift is small, its combination with other errors is like discovering lightning hitting the same spot 3 times, statistically astronomical in improbability. And the fourth oddity, which pushes the coin beyond even the most imaginative expectations, lies in the reverse design where Monticello is shown, because there is an unusual die gouge that forms a thin raised line slicing diagonally across the upper architecture, like a lightning strike etched into the building. And such die gouges are typically caused by tiny shards of metal breaking off inside the die chamber and scraping the die face before striking begins, leaving behind physical scratches that imprint onto every coin struck until the shard is removed or the die is replaced, meaning this gouge is not accidental surface damage from circulation but an intentional die flaw embedded in the minting tool itself, and these gouges represent literal signatures of the minting process, showing the history of failure, neglect, or rushed production. And this scratch is not only present but also intersects perfectly with already existing doubling, making it easily distinguishable from later scratches caused by circulation wear. And numismatists emphasize that when a coin contains multiple factory errors that document real-time internal mint chaos, the historical narrative itself becomes part of the coin's value, because collectors do not just pay for a piece of metal, they pay for what it represents, a snapshot of mint failure and industrial rarity that cannot be duplicated. And yet the most astonishing aspect of all is that this coin lived in circulation long enough to acquire minor surface toning but not enough to be heavily scratched or damaged, so it retains extremely high-grade characteristics with smooth luster, sharp details, and preserved surfaces. And this lightly circulated, mint-produced freak of nature became a unicorn, admired by investors, museum curators, and private collectors who know that such pieces are never merely bought, they are competed for aggressively. And as word spread, so did rumors, speculations, and mythologies around other possible specimens. Because if one such coin exists, could there be more hiding in bankrolls, pocket change, or forgotten coin jars? And that possibility has ignited the imaginations of thousands of collectors who now inspect their 2015 nickels with magnifiers, hoping to find something similar, whispering that perhaps they too might uncover a $110 million treasure. But experts warn that the combination of errors seen in the original coin was so uniquely layered that any second specimen would need to replicate all of these exact conditions to achieve comparable value, and history shows that even close variants fall dramatically lower in price, and many opportunists have attempted to pass off machine doubling or normal rim wear as rare variants, but professional grading companies and auction houses will never treat a coin last 2013 P5 cent USA coin. Today we are diving into one of the most fascinating and mind-blowing discoveries in the world of modern US coinage, a simple 2013 P5 cent coin that has been rumored to reach a staggering value of $112 million because of its errors, its rare combinations of minting mistakes, its mysterious origins, and the unbelievable circumstances that can make an otherwise ordinary Jefferson nickel turn into something that collectors around the world would fight over. And if you are watching this right now, you are in for an unforgettable journey, because what makes the 2013 P nickel so valuable is not merely its age or its mintage numbers, but the strange, layered possibilities of minting anomalies that transform it from a basic 5-cent coin into a once-in-a-lifetime prize. And as we go deeper into this story, you will understand how a simple coin struck in Philadelphia became the center of attention for numismatists, investors, historians, and collectors, who thrive on the hope of catching lightning in a bottle, because in the world of coin collecting it is never just about the denomination stamped on the metal, it is about rarity, history, mistakes, and the journey that a coin has traveled from the moment it was struck to the moment someone notices something is very wrong with it. The 2013 P nickel begins like any standard US Jefferson 5-cent, made of a copper-nickel alloy, featuring the portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and the iconic depiction of Monticello on the reverse, an everyday coin designed to circulate through millions of hands unnoticed. But the mystery behind this specific coin is the type of striking errors that collectors have claimed exist within it. And once those errors are spotted, everything about this nickel changes forever, because a small mistake during the minting process can be enough to turn pocket change into an artifact worth more than any luxury car or mansion. And it is this fascination that drives people to dig through rolls of coins, inspect pocket change, and scan every detail looking for the clue that says they might have found something no one else has seen. For the 2013 P nickel, the first type of error reported is the dramatic double die effect, in which the details of Jefferson's face, nose, or the lettering appear duplicated or ghosted, and on coins with the worst cases of doubling it can look like the coin was printed twice slightly off-center, making letters thicker, distorted, or visibly shadowed. And this happens because the die used to strike the coin was misaligned, or it shifted between strikes, and this kind of error is highly desirable, because it is rarely consistent, meaning only a handful of coins escape the mint before the flaw is corrected. And that is where rarity begins to explode, because every coin collector knows that scarcity drives value the way oxygen drives fire. But doubling is just the beginning, as some of the most remarkable 2013 P nickel errors involve the planchette itself, the coin blank that is struck, and when a damaged, cracked, improperly hardened, or mismixed planchette makes it into the press, the result is a coin that is flawed from its birth, and those flaws can appear as strange ridges, irregular textures, or missing metal, sometimes with patches of copper showing through, sometimes with abnormal coloration, and in worst cases, a planchette might not even be the correct composition for the denomination, meaning a nickel could be struck on a dime planchette, copper penny planchette, or even a foreign coin blank, a type of mistake so rare that a coin with this error can skyrocket from worthlessness to headline making millions overnight. Imagine holding a 5-cent piece that weighs less than it should and knowing that simple weight difference is the key to one of the rarest minting mistakes in modern history. And if it were confirmed that a 2013 P nickel was struck on the wrong metal, then collectors would rush to auction houses, newspapers would cover it, and the bidding would no longer be about coin collectors but about wealthy investors who understand that unique numismatic artifacts are safer than gold, because each one becomes a one-of-a-kind piece of history that no one can reproduce. Yet many collectors say that the true lottery for the 2013 P nickel lies not just in a single mistake but in combinations of mistakes, a phenomenon known as a compound error, where the coin might exhibit doubling while also being off-center, or have missing lettering while also showing signs of planchette cracks. And it is that layering of anomalies that sends value skyrocketing, because when multiple production flaws appear together, the probability of a second or third coin existing diminishes. And suddenly you are holding the equivalent of a genetic mutation in the world of mint production, a mistake so rare that even experienced graders gasp when they encounter it. Some 2013 P nickels have been rumored to display off-center strikes in which the design is shifted or the rim is incomplete, leaving a crescent of blank metal where the machinery failed to deliver full pressure, while other examples include partial collars or failed heat treatment during the annealing phase, creating brittle coins that show strange fractures or ghost-like impressions. And collectors know that these errors often survive only because they slipped into circulation before mint. Employees removed them, because every official facility has strict quality controls designed to catch these mistakes before they ever meet the public. But the mint handles billions of coins, and human error can never be defeated entirely. The Philadelphia Mint in 2013 produced tens of millions of Jefferson nickels, so the chances of error coins slipping through exist, but the chances of the rarest and most dramatic variants are microscopic, and that is why the story of the $112 million valuation emerges, because when you combine a unique minting error, a mysterious circulation history, massive collector demand, and a wild momentum that follows a discovery that no one expects, suddenly a single coin can command insane prices as collectors and wealthy buyers compete to own something they believe will never appear again, and auctions are driven not only by the current market value but also by human emotion, ego, investment psychology, and the unstoppable energy of rarity. Think of how the 2013 P nickel could have traveled. Maybe it was struck on a foreign planchette. Maybe the die that produced its face cracked halfway through the run. Maybe the mint employee tasked with removing defective coins never noticed the flaw. Maybe the coin entered circulation quietly. Maybe it sat in a cashier's drawer for years. Maybe someone spent it without even looking at it. Maybe it passed through a vending machine, and eventually maybe it found its way into the hands of someone who happened to be curious enough to inspect it. And what started as a casual glance became an earthquake in the collecting world, because one person recognized something the rest of the planet ignored. That is how many million-dollar coin discoveries begin, not with experts in white gloves but with ordinary people holding something extraordinary in their palm. And once images of such a coin surface, collectors begin to speculate, and speculation becomes obsession, and obsession drives auction houses to prepare for bidding wars. And in that fever, an artifact like the 2013 P5-cent error coin could theoretically fetch numbers that seem impossible, because once a coin crosses the threshold from currency to artifact, it is no longer valued by the metal it contains but by the story it carries and the belief collectors attach to it. This is why the most important lesson for anyone watching is to never underestimate a coin just because it looks ordinary or carries a small denomination, because the real key to wealth in the world of numismatics is knowledge and attention to detail, and every year collectors discover coins worth thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions because they spotted something unusual in their change, and you might not know if you possess a treasure until you carefully examine the lettering, the rim, the portrait, the weight, the sound it makes when dropped on a surface, or even the slight differences in color that indicate improper striking or composition. When you hold a 2013 P nickel, look at Jefferson's eye, observe the nose bridge, check for ghosted images around the text, examine the rim for wear that seems unnatural or repeating patterns of distortion, compare its weight to standard numbers, and if anything feels wrong or different, consider getting it professionally authenticated, because the jump from 5 cents to thousands or millions is real when error coins are verified, and the history of numismatics is full of examples where a mint mistake became more valuable than gold and shook the market. There may only ever be one or two examples of the most dramatic 2013 P nickel errors, and that scarcity is what drives collectors wild, because rarity is not something you can mass produce. It cannot be faked without detection, and it cannot be recreated once the mint corrects the problem. So if a 2013 P error coin with extreme characteristics exists, then its value becomes a monument to that moment in minting history.